Hello everyone, it is Mike Levin on June 2nd, 2022, Thursday at about 7:30 p.m. I figure I'll catch a few more of the vignettes of this wonderful location and property that I have been living at for the past 2 years. And I'm getting ready to pack up some comic books and bring them over to the public storage facility. So I thought, in the spirit of live casting, whatever it is I'm doing here, that I would invite you in on it. And this is coming up this weekend is one of 4 remaining weekends that was supposed to be with my child here at the cure for lockdown and quarantine and cabin fever. And I'll just clear out the back, make room for the comics, and I'll just talk you through it as I load stuff in, go to public storage, and use that trip also to hit PetSmart to get some food for some of the critters. Whew, this is hard. Yeah, so predictably, this weekend has also been canceled. My custody, my 2 days, perhaps even 3 I was hoping for. I was hoping for 2-3 days in a row. I got the 3rd day of Memorial Weekend. It wasn't supposed to happen, at least as I was informed, but it ended up actually happening anyway. And it was 2 wonderful days at the pool facility here at Winona Lakes. We opened it and closed it for 2 of the days. So here I've got these comic books courteously boxed up for me in new boxes by my wife. And previously I had them in these boxes that were probably, I don't know, 20 years old, minimum a piece. These, I don't know what their attributes are. I know that the boards that are in the comics are anti-acidic, and I will be putting these things in public storage, but that's the price one has to pay for this transition strategy I'm using, where I only have 2 weeks of overlap between the lease starting at my new place in Staten Island and my lease ending here. So that's not a lot of time when you are working full time. Maybe I'll put in for some time off, but I certainly won't be able to rent a truck and pack everything in that time. So in all the little snippets I get here and there, I'm always bringing stuff over. So putting the phone right down here on top of the box, lifting the box up so I can keep talking to you, closing the door a little bit in between so that my cats don't run out. Thank goodness I got a place where I'll be able to have my 2 cats. I had such criteria I had to meet in choosing that place. First, I had to do it in basically no time, because the only time I'm at Staten Island to apartment shop is when I was picking up or dropping off my kid, which usually is not in good apartment shopping. When it is, it's when I'm supposed to be at their soccer game. So on a recent soccer game, I apologized to Addie and said, look, I'm going to just make a focused endeavor here. And fresh on my mind was the Algorithms to Live By, one of the books I actually kept on my Audible book club subscription. And one of the algorithm that they open with is how long you should spend shopping. After, given the amount of time and energy you're actually willing to potentially spend on an apartment hunt or a house hunt, how far in should you know that you should choose a bird in hand versus continuing to look? And it's apparently been proven through studies. What do you know? It's somewhere between 27 and 33% in. There are certain parameters that'll push it one way or the other, but generally, as so many things in life, you've got these magic ratios, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, right? Of course, they're the magic ratios. Things always are breaking down on half, third, fourth, or fifth. 50%, 33%, 25%, or 20%. How could it not be? It just makes sense. There's truth in that. And so the apartment hunt, I looked at 2 places that day. I had actually online looked at 12 or 15, I don't know, something like that. But the ones I actually went and visited, one was this apartment complex that I could have got for $1,800 a month, a mere $200 a month more than what I'm spending for this entire house would have gotten me something that felt like Alcatraz. It looked like Alcatraz, it smelled like Alcatraz. The depressingness of going in through these hallways that feel like a mental facility, worse than a prison. So I was like, no, that's not for me. And if that's what you can get for $1,800, I would rather go bankrupt than sacrifice my quality of life again. Because the last time I did this, I was in a tiny studio apartment, and there were 3 of us on the weekends because I met my wife while I was there. So she was living with me in the studio. And then when the kid came to join me, that was 3 people in the studio through the weekends. And then for a time, I had 3 cats there. So 3 humans and 3 cats in a studio apartment. Started out at about $1,700, I think. They hiked it to $1,800. And this place, despite the fact that it really had some trappings, it had trappings that made you feel good about in your head for your psyche, it had ultimate downsides, not the least of which the management was monstrous. To get out of a lease, it cost me $8,000. $8,000. Can you imagine that? And they came after me with lawyers too, so I just paid it. So, I roll over. I'm that nice guy. I got that nice guy syndrome. I got it written all over me. So that gets you taken advantage of by the sharks. You don't think you're dealing with sharks. You don't think you're in a shark tank when you go to a place like Irby, but you're in a shark tank. It's Staten Island. Of course it's a shark tank. So I was like, I will spend in order to not have such a deep lifestyle sacrifice. Instead of a studio apartment, I will have a 3-bedroom apartment. So at very least, it's an apartment for me. An apartment for me. It's a bedroom for me and my wife, a master bedroom, and then a dedicated bedroom for the kid, even though they're going to be with me on just the weekends, and then an extra bedroom, which we can use for various purposes. If anyone needs their extra privacy, an office, a studio for my YouTubing and such. So I got my options. Of course, it costs me. Orthodox Celtic prayer is like, I'm spending $100 a month to live, and my laptop cost me $200. Yeah, well, welcome to New York City. My laptop cost me $800, and that's considered cheap, and it's what I need for my everyday use for my profession. I need to run Windows 10, and with Windows 10, I need to run the Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, which means I need a pretty beefy system. And so that was $800. I still went with a cheap one. That's a Microsoft Surface laptop, not even a Pro, just a Surface laptop. An old Intel one, so I wouldn't have any driver problems, all this 64-bit ARM instability, crap people are suffering with. Not for me, not bleeding edge, no siree. And what else? So instead of $1,500, so you see, this started out at $1,400. I wanted to pay just $1,200. So I got this place for $1,400 a month, starting out at the beginning of lockdown, quarantine. I moved into it in July of 2020. What great timing. July of 2020, newly renovated. No one understood what was happening. I understood what was happening. And I consider this the cure for what inevitably would be much longer than anyone was expecting. How could it not be? I remember the fearmongers of the Gulf War I and II. And I'm like, the fearmongers are going to move on this like sharks in a shark tank. There is no way that the end is in sight, and the worst place in the world to be is New York City. For how many reasons? Being cooped up in much less space for the money. That's one. Being in the epicenter and ground zero for such things, that's two. Do I even need to go to a third? I think those two reasons are enough. So for reasons of cost and safety, I got my butt to, well, the mountains, not Mars. But yeah, I really connected with a location that I knew growing up. This was part of my childhood, even though I'm a Philadelphian, and my home is Lafayette Hill, Conshohocken, Plymouth Meeting. My secondary home is Manayunk and Roxborough, which is really in the city, so I lived my share inside city limits, even though I started out as Philly suburban. And then this was the winter getaway. This was Shawnee Mountain. There's Shawnee Mountain, which opened while I was here. The Shawnee Mountain, which opened while I remembered it opening. It's like, oh, there's a new mountain opening. And, we went and were there for like the first year and two that it was open, the new ski lifts, and it was a private little secret mountain, not as secret as like Hahn Mountain. There were other ski mountains in the area that even people around here haven't heard about. As much as I put down my parents, they knew how to find the uncrowded ski resorts. It was one of those fond memories growing up. So that's where I've been for 2 years. But the landlords are ready to attempt to continue to cash in on the market here, because the New Yorkers will pay anything, it seems. And so they're going to be asking $250,000 for this place. And I'll show you the place next door, which is also asking $250,000. And I was like, hey, if you wanted to do $100,000 or even $150,000, and were willing to finance me, because my savings are gone, but I earn well. I earn a New York salary in the boondocks. So $250,000, right? $250,000. Let me show you this place. And I had thought about it. I had sincerely thought about it. Maybe you'll see some deer or even a bear or fox. The nature watching around here is just amazing. So this place has really 2 upstairs living places. It could be a double, 2 families. It's got 2 garages. I guess they're 2 single car garages. And all this patio and deck work. And private property, but I know them. I talk to them. They're looking out for me. When I was thinking I was going to be staying here, which was a real possibility, the 1.5-hour drive be darned. If this was the cure to my child's situation, then they were more than welcome to it. Here's the grave of a ex-owner's dog. Here is the swing that I put up for the kid, and then the launching platform. There's a little bit of controversy surrounding this launching platform because I rebuilt the wall a little bit in order to be a good launching platform, and they asked me to put it back to the way it was, and I showed them this wonderful work I've done here. Oh, it hit me in the back. And I said I've received compliments on it. It's really put back together better than it was before when it extended out a little bit further. You can hardly see because the grass is all grown in. Here's the fire pit that's been our wonderful fire pit of late. Here's the bricks that I have gathered from Hurricane Sandy destruction. And I always try and get things that are interesting, either worn very, very smooth and round, or having the name of the manufacturer. This one is TBCO. Some of them are hardly even legible, but they're really interesting to try, right? There's a more readable one here. Can't read it. But you get the idea. It's been fun. I've been building this up. And yeah, I dump water on the fire. This is the remains of the last water dumped fire. See, you know, I got a good fire going with these big logs, this wonderful big logs, because a bunch of trees were chopped down. It took took a while. It was getting a little bit dangerous. I have some footage of a woodpecker that was chopping on a tree that was just up around here. But this is one of the trees that came down. This is one of the trees that came down. There were at least 3. There might have been 4. This over here is the remains of one of the trees that came down, and you can see the hole, how it was empty inside, hanging over the car and the house. And so they finally had the tree work done, and that gave me those big piles of logs out there. There was a big pile here. You can see I've been doing what I can to get the grass to grow back in. There's a pile back there still. And here's the hideout. Here's the hideout. That was a major part of our lives. I at one point imagined that one would be launching onto this zip line from off of the hideout. I had this image of Kim Possible or Batman, and taking a lot of the tension out of the zip line, taking a lot of the slack out of the zip line. In fact, I have a video showing that. I was quite proud of how I figured out how to do it, but it turned out to be a mistake. You want lots of slack in the zip line, and you want a much lesser angle than what it really seems at first. So I'll do one slide down the zip line here, holding the camera, showing how much of a fun and easy type thing. There is the bike that I did an unboxing of and had out on the Delaware and rode back from the landing site. So from launch to landing, electric bike. You just put the seat underneath you like that. You hold on to this handle. That's the zip line. Simple as that. A lot of fun. Very formative in my life, my child's life, and my wife's life. Not exactly beloved, but formative for sure. This is the canoe we take out on the Delaware, the old town. And this is the kayak we took, because sometimes the canoe is just big. So sometimes we go kayaking instead. And that's the small kayak for Addie. And we had times where, you know, my wife was on this one, Addie was on that one, and they go down a stop or two. And you know, sometimes the first time is a little bit challenging, and there were some complaints and stuff, but it was still, I believe, one of the memorable and formative, in a good way, events of their life. I was looking forward to many more of these, whether I continued living here or at the next place, because, you know, lease closing, this is, you know, lots of places around here, other places to rent. There are ones for $1,200 I was looking at that I would have been perfectly happy with. Even bigger than this, but not part of this place, Winona Lakes. Well, Winona Lakes, let me tell you. I have experience with co-ops. I have experience with New York co-ops, 2 of them. One in New York City, Park Terrace Gardens, and one in the Catskills of New York. And yeah, getting out to the mountains in New York ain't no much better than being in Manhattan, because a New York co-op is a New York co-op. I was really terrified of encountering that effect here. I'm gonna get on my electric bike and take you up and show you the pool, because, you know, I got a little bit of light left. My work day's over, so why not, right? Show riding this thing. And I'll do it really cautiously. Again, I am a risk taker. How could I not be? life is too short to at least not take the little risks, right? Jeez. So I'm just gonna put this to 1, and I'll show you. Here it is. I'm going at 8 miles per hour. Gee, if I can remember the name of this, Vinkfer VX2. This is the Vinkfer VX2 bike. I'll try and hold my hand out, give you a better shot of me riding it. I have the electric assist set only to 1. It is a folding bike, so this thing can just be thrown into the trunk of a car real easy without a bike rack. That's a huge advantage. And ladies and gentlemen, it can be thrown into a canoe just as easily. I'm gonna go to assist of 2. Whoa, you feel the superpowers. Oh my God, it's really like having superpowers. So I can stop pedaling for a moment here. Go down this little steep incline. It's a little bit rough. It was raining today, so the ground is wet. Lots of puddles. You can see I'm on an unpaved road. This was another part of the advantage of this community. And to tell you the truth, I would have in a heartbeat stayed in Winona Lakes. Yeah, the rest of my story. Terrified of co-ops, right, as I am. But this co-op was not to be terrified of. They've been running fires in the fire pit. Of course, there's the trampoline and the zip line. Yeah, not a single complaint. I've done hookah out on the deck, smoking the old hookah. And yeah. Welcome to the community center and administration. And where I'm taking you was the old ski hill. This was a ski mountain itself. So this association had its own chairlift, the remnants of which are still around. You're not allowed to explore or climb on it. And look, it's like swampland. And I'll be switching the assist all the way up to 5. 3, 4, 5. And so now I'm going uphill at 12 miles an hour. It's going down, of course. You can see the miles per hour going down. Assist is assist. It's not the whole thing. So honestly, you really do have to continue to pedal on this thing, especially when going uphill. But when you're not going uphill, and even when you're going downhill a little bit, this 750 watt monster will get you up to 30 miles an hour plus. It took me about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to get one landing stop down the Delaware River from Ekbach landing to Bushkill landing. Beautiful route, lots of wildlife and herons and, you know, all kinds of birds and foliage, and it gets really windy there for a while, like you're in a nature preserve or something. So this is me going into the community location. I'll show you the pool. So, you know, my plan was to drop flyers, you know, to go into the post office system and drop postcards on every house, getting the word out that I was looking to rent, because a lot of people who live here live in weekend, summer, you know, these are second homes. This started out as a very, very second home place. I'll do a view of the pool from way back here. I won't do it too close, or I'll do it close from the side as I walk past, because I don't want to get these attendants on video. But they've got the very, very boring job of keeping this outdoor pool open when there's no one around. And as you can see, on a Thursday night, you have the thing to yourself, right? It's really amazing, and it isn't much more crowded on a Friday and a Saturday. On Memorial Day weekend, you know, there was a coming and going of perfectly aged kids, but not such high quantity that you ever felt like it was too much, right? Here's their indoor facilities where you can rent out for parties and stuff. And I won't put them on camera, but I'm walking past the 2 attendants who are just so wonderful in helping. You know, they really know my kid by now. How can you not? Hyper competitive and diving for the batons. And here, I will show you the top of the ski hill that used to be active. And now it's kind of, you know, ghost town. What do they call it? Abandoned relic, Pennsylvania. But, you know, cool, right? Really cool. Nice part of the tapestry and texture of a childhood to come here and to see this sort of stuff. At the bottom, there's this wonderful counterbalance thing. Oh, there's a deer. I don't know if you can. Oh, there's one. There goes a whitetail. There goes a whitetail. There's another one right there. Yeah, the counterbalance for this thing is a wonderful exercise in physics. How do you keep something like this doing its whole suspension thing? How do you keep the tension in here? And, you know, there's a piece of concrete that must be like 3 or 4 tons just hanging at the end of a cable, a lever system down there. And so, yeah, Winona Lakes. Would have loved to have stayed. There's the basketball courts, and I'll walk around the other side to show you the playground, which is one of several of the playgrounds in this facility. And as the name implies of Winona Lakes, there are lakes here. We hardly even begun to go out and do the discovery. The first year here was all the vibe of lockdown, so there was a lot of uncomfortableness about going out and exploring and knowing when you're cutting across people's yards versus where you're allowed to go. So I got all the maps and figured out all the routes and where all of the lakes were. I got to a couple myself, exploratory wise. Of course, now with the electric bike, it's like 1,000 times easier. You know, the first part to get there, you don't even need to take your car. And yeah, so much for that. The best laid plans, right? At least for the 2 years we were here, it was as planned, the cure to the confines of a New York City apartment. You know, especially for me, I had to get out of that studio. But even for the kid in Staten Island, there's a certain vibe that hangs over you when you're in New York City. You can't just walk out. And, you know, you saw where I live, roads aren't even paved yet. Some of the roads are, you know, no outlet. And, you know, the parts that aren't people's backyard here, you can just go through and explore and have wonderful hiking experiences. Check yourself for ticks afterwards, of course. But, of course, you can't do fires. You can't do camping on Winona Lakes, but that's fine because we're adjacent to the Delaware Water Gap, which is a state park which has plenty of actual camping. This was supposed to be the summer of actual camping, going out with tents, doing the real thing. They get some of that experience with the Scouts, but of course it's different than staking out and doing it on your own with your family. So, you know, it's not gone. It's not gone. This isn't out of our lives. It can never be taken away. These experiences are now imprinted, and the awareness of other ways of being, other options in life. Again, there's that pool that they won't be at this weekend. Instead, what? Cooped up? I hope they get out. They are at near a beach, you know, a New York City harbor beach, but a beach nonetheless. All right, put this down to just a 1 on the assist. Kick off. Pedal enough for the assist to kick in. There's a throttle, but the throttle here is not anything I can use when shooting the video because the phone is in my right hand and the throttle is on the right hand side. And I'll be going down a pretty steep hill. I'm in fact going to take assist off entirely. I'm down to 0 on the electric meter. And I'll go down this hill with a 0 and maybe just give you some video of the riding experience, right? Oh, I need the assist. I'm gonna go to 1 anyway. It's a heavy bike. So part of the price of these electric bikes is, you know, they're gonna be heavy. Maybe there's lighter ones, but I spent only, I say only, but I spent only 1,100, 1,200, closer to 1,100, which is pretty cheap for these types of things. I saw a piece of news that one of the high-end electric bike manufacturers is going for disruption. So to bring a high-end bike with the built from the lighter weight composite. See, this thing I think is stainless steel or, you know, some alloy like that. And you're not gonna, and that has weight with it. So all the expensive electric bikes are made from, you know, carbon composite alloys that you're not gonna get for 1,100 bucks. But one of the companies out there I read, and maybe I'll bring you the details, it is of interest, is going for disruption. So we now have 4 bicycles in our family. We have a wonderful Schwinn that we got when we moved here 2 years ago. We got a mongoose, an adult mongoose that was given to me by my ex-father-in-law, and I still use it. It's a wonderful bike, like one of those stunt hopping bikes with the great shock absorbers. And you know, that brand, Mongoose, it's just a good bike. And so I got my kid a Mongoose as well. And they haven't been out on it that much because the bike riding hasn't been much their thing. They've been much more into the trampoline. So there's a 4-way stop sign here. So you hear the cars coming, but you know they gotta stop. If they don't, oh, well, my bad, but also their bad. That would set me up for life. That would end my financial woes. Oh, my financial woes. So yeah, I'll be wiping out my life savings. Not that I've ever saved much in my life. I've made stupid decisions. I've been, you know, had long periods of lapses in reason. Long lapses of errors in judgment. But I lived. I got out of that, you know, tiny little suburb I was born in. Many people haven't, but other people from that same suburbs have been on the Forbes, you know, top 40 richest people in the world list, and you know, the top 40 under 40 list, right? Michael Rubin, a kid who I almost got in a fight with and beat up because I totally would have won. I would have kicked his ass. Still would today. Founder of GSI Commerce that got like the Toys R Us deal. Oh, look where Toys R Us is today. It had no connection, but the AOL bought them, and he cashed out and opened Ooh La La and stuff. And yeah, boy, talk about, you know, the sin of jealousy and stuff. Hell yeah, of course I am, out of the same neighborhood. But coming out of college, well, he skipped out. You know, he went to college based on a deal with his parents. He didn't want to go to college, but I didn't want to go to college much either, but I stayed in. And my dad kicked it my week of graduation. And I had to take over his check cashing business because it was all that he left. And my sister was like, oh, you're blah, 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 blah. So I took that over, and I was robbed in the course of it. A guy came up behind me, tried to hit me in the head with a hammer. So as a good Philadelphian I am, I shot him. I shot him 4 times. The 5th bullet went through someone's window out there in Queens Village, Philadelphia. Near what was once Mellon Bank. I don't even know what it's been rolled up into these days. And, you know, they brought me to court in front of a judge for, you know, carrying a weapon without a gun permit and discharging a firearm in city limits. So by the time I was there and was appearing in front of the judge, they were like, well, did you apply for your permit? I was like, yes, Your Honor. They were like, did you get the permit? I'm like, yes, Your Honor. They're like, do you have your permit? And I'm like, yeah, I have it right here. And he's like, could I see it? And I took it out of my pocket and I brought it up to the judge, and that was the last I ever saw of it. And then regarding the actual shooting, well, the guy was coming up behind me to hit me in the head with a hammer, to take a bag that I had full of just coinage that I got for that Friday's worth of check cashing. We were running out of nickels and quarters, so I went to the bank to get like a couple $1,000 worth of nickels and quarters, and this is what, is worth cracking my head open with. So when people are out to get you, and sometimes they are, sometimes you're in a situation where bad people are out to get you. You run through the scenarios in your head. You run through the scenarios over and over. You try not to lose yourself. You can live in a state of fear, let me tell you, and it's terrible living in that state of fear. But you try not to. And I should make sure I got my wallet on me. I do. I'll give you one more view of them comic books as we pack up the thing here and head off to PetSmart. I'll take you to PetSmart with me. And so there's my comic books ready to put into storage. Make this trip worth it. Always be doing more than one thing. Kill many birds with one stone. And use that metaphor freely, no matter how much it triggers people who hate it. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You kill birds with one single stone. Metaphors. And maybe you'll see the beautiful sunset stuff as we go here. And then I'll be uploading this on my way back. Doing the next video. Using that miraculous feature. Make sure the doors are shut. Brakes off. All good. Hi-ho. Off to PetSmart we go. The animals will feed. Baby gets a new pair of shoes. So what can I talk about? So this is life casting, right? I plan on blowing up on YouTube, not by these slick, highly edited people only putting their best foot forward videos. I always have been about not editing. Who has time to edit? The AIs will edit for you in the future. If you have someone who cares to edit and think they can drive you to being a million view per video channel and they have something to gain out of it, maybe you can make some arrangement with them and have like a parallel channel. This is my dirty channel. And then you have a clean channel which has it edited down to just the best parts, right? JavaScript, the good parts. And that's a viable plan. If it's not AIs, it can be someone who's like in it with you. And people are lucky to have anyone in it with them. So excuse me while I adjust this, because once I get off these back roads of Winona Lakes, I'm, even more focused on driving. I am teaching my wife to drive. It's a miraculous thing because, who people are and, what their challenges are. Driving is, as I point out in many prior videos, a kind of no compromise activity. I say that here as I'm talking, but the deer are everywhere. I wish you could see them out the side of the window. Everywhere I look are the deer. This is such a wonderful place to observe nature. Just out your window, you can see everything. Well, I already went through those. I'm already boring you. Why not? Foxes. Foxes are an interesting thing to see in the wild. The last fox I got to know, because I throw scraps out. You throw scraps out, you get different feedback from the neighbor. Nobody has ever complained, but when you discuss it with them, you get different feedback. Lots of people put the salt licks out and feed the deer corn and everything. They're beautiful. And no one has problems with the deer, really. If you do, you wouldn't be living here. But other scraps, other kitchen scraps, are going to bring in things that eat meat. They're going to bring in the vermin, the mice. And that's going to bring in the cats. And it's also going to bring in the foxes and perhaps even the occasional coyote, and there have been stories of the occasional bobcat. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are in bobcat. This is the wilderness. Despite the fact that the roads run through it, when you look at this area on the map, it is more wilderness than not. Delaware Water Gap or non-state park. It's mostly just woods. And that woods is mostly just inaccessible swampland, you know? Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. It's all swamp. It's all swamp. And they talk about the Jersey neighborhoods, you know? The way suburban sprawl works in Jersey is they just drain the next swamp out and level it, fill it with landfill, build the ticky-tacky houses around cul-de-sacs, and, you know, the next round of retiring Staten Islanders who don't need to live in Staten Island anymore, because you need to live there when you're in a municipal job, right? That's the thing. That's what Staten Island is full of. It's full of city workers, because in order to get the benefits of the city, the pension and everything, you've got to live in the city. You've got to even live in the city, I think, to work for the city in a lot of cases, I believe. And these are some cushy jobs. They have, there's some of these things that still have pensions, you know, and retirement funds and stuff. So those folks are all living on Staten Island, right? They're not Brooklynites. They're not the hipsters. They're not Manhattanites. Those are all people who are non-natives. They come from other places. They're still the last vestiges of natives, but they're driven out with higher and higher rental prices, right? Anyone actually living in Brooklyn or Manhattan as a native is super wealthy from their property, and probably not living there anymore because they're renting that property to create their income so that they can live the easy life somewhere else. Or they're renters, in which case the same renting pricing pressures are driving them out. There's Section 8 and stuff. There's some exceptions, but you know, that's Section 8 housing. That's not nice places. But those people hold on to their Section 8 housing with a death grip for as long as they can until the developers find tricks to drive even them out. There's a lot of tension surrounding that. So, all native New Yorkers are really in Staten Island, maybe some in Queens, right? The Peter Parker house is of Queens, where Peter Parker lives with Aunt May, that's Queens. So the two unknown boroughs, right? Because everyone knows Brooklyn, everyone knows Manhattan, but Queens and Staten Island, am I missing one? There's five boroughs, and the one people mostly forget to mention is Staten Island, but I'm forgetting one of them right now. Bronx, of course. So the Bronx is really north of Manhattan. I lived just this side of the Bronx. Where Manhattan narrows down to about yay big, and you can walk from side to side in about 5 minutes. Broadway is still coming right up through that little bottleneck, and Broadway goes over into first another bit of Manhattan, which is on the other side of Broadway, Marble Hill, and when they moved the river there, Spite and Dival, something of the devil, I'll say. They didn't want to give up their Manhattan address, so in a few blocks over the Broadway Bridge into the Bronx, it's still really a Manhattan mailing address. And then just past that is South Bronx and some really beautiful parks up there. Cortlandt. So I fear even saying, because I messed up the Cloisters name, which is down in Manhattan around the 180 block, one of the Met museums that looks like a medieval castle. So I'm getting the names a little more natural, right? 5 years after I moved away from, it's been about 5 years since, 2017, around October of 2017 is when I got divorced, and that's around when I moved out of Inwood. Inwood, which is that area, North Manhattan. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022. That's barely 4 years. Is that really true? 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Now 5 years. It's been 5 years. My gut was right. It's been about 5 years since my divorce. And I am nearing my 4-year anniversary with my second wife. And yeah, we'll see how things go. What am I? I'm a lonely person. I'm a lonely person who had all those classic, they call them running on empty, 70s and 80s kid experiences where all our fathers strived for the American dream on the tail of World War II. When the GIs coming back from World War II, on the GI Bill, had some infusion of money and could buy houses that were being built as those ticky-tacky houses, using all the excess soldiers to do the construction who needed work, so let's put them to work in construction, and using all the excess manufacturing capacity that we ramped up for to build tanks and airplanes for World War II. So here we were, having dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and demonstrated world dominance in a way even greater than the Brits, who cracked the Enigma code and really won World War II, right? We give so much credit to Albert Einstein, the Manhattan Project, and the atomic bomb. That's because it went off with a boom and not a whimper, right? T.S. Eliot, the world ends with not a bang, but a whimper. And everyone's like, oh, he was wrong, T.S. Eliot was wrong, and hollow people, the world is going to end with a bang, not a whimper. And then, you know, biologicals and stuff like that, you know, what we got a little taste of in order to strengthen our immune system with the pandemic. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the deaths were horrible. My heart goes out to everyone who lost loved ones from 2020 to today, 2022, and it's still going on. It's real. People who think it's not real are just stupid. But it's cutting off the edge of the distribution curve. There's an average distribution curve in all things. And those who are most at risk, whose immune systems are weakest, who have the most breathing problems, who are oldest, are most susceptible and are going to die sooner than they would before because we have a pandemic. That doesn't lessen the horribleness of it, but it makes it something less than, say, the plague, things that wiped out 30% of humanity. What happened to the Native Americans here in the Americas? It was something like 80% of Native Americans were decimated by smallpox and other diseases brought over from Europe. And the whole image we have of the noble savage, what terrible language, is after the great civilizations had been decimated. The great civilizations who, in terms of numbers and all things but technology, could rival the civilizations of Europe and the Western world. But they all died. 80% of them died, right? So what we're experiencing now could have been much worse. What we did experience is the digital nervous system, the as of the internet, and as of mobile connectivity and satellites and cell towers, the digital nervous system that informs us what's going on and what we should do. The staying indoors, the social distancing, the masks, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole human animal working as a single organism because we have a digital nervous system. That is a miracle of modern times. Those nattering nabobs of negativity who say how bad everything is and who only lock in on the negative and then close their mind. It's worse than just locking in on the negative. It's closing their mind to the positive. It's not applying human imagination to how and why things get better. So of course, for them, it's going to get worse. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you are not being positive, you're being negative. If you're being negative, you're not going to be the spontaneous source of anything good. Consequently, part of the problem. Good things only come from positive people. Does that make positive people good? Yes. That makes positive people good. Does that make negative people and pessimists bad? Yes. That makes negative people and pessimists bad. So, does that make them really bad people? Are they not worth it? Should they not be here? No, they should be here because it takes all kinds, because our strength as that human animal comes from heterogeneousness. There's a term in sci-fi, Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card, that wonderful sci-fi series that has been turned into a movie that I haven't even seen. I can't believe I haven't seen it. The book series was so meaningful to me. Where there's two brothers and a sister. It's a story of two brothers and a sister. And a society, a culture, humanity, that knows for a fact that aliens are on their way. In fact, it has a little bit of footage from maybe remote drones or something showing another civilization getting wiped out. No mercy, no first contact, no striving to understand and to be understood, just here comes the aliens and they melt your faces and drink the juices. That's what humanity was facing in Ender's Game. And so the public wasn't informed, because you don't inform the public of such things. But they had a rigorous program of finding humanity's hope, because of course hope is going to come from people. Solutions don't come from committees. Solutions come from those inspired individuals who bring with them that special thing that makes all the difference. So they had a monitoring system for finding those people. And there was a lot of competition to become the chosen people to go off to some sort of military academy. No one knew it was to find the military leaders and geniuses to get us out of this bind. They just saw it as an honor. So Ender Higgins was chosen, and his brother, I think maybe Andrew, was not chosen. And it launches a tremendous rivalry that goes on through it. It wouldn't be wrong to say through the centuries because of time dilational issues. Ender Wiggins becomes the military genius and saves the humanity. I won't spoil it. But Andrew Wiggins becomes the head of what they call the hegemony? I don't even know how they pronounce it, but it is generally the opposite of diversity. It's what the Nazis were in trying to get the Aryan race to be the superior race of the Third Reich. That is a hegemony because it is the reverse of heterogeneous. It is the harmonious mixture of same-like things. A single culture, a single worldview that runs everything and makes the decisions for everyone. Hegemony. So Andrew Wiggins ran the hegemony. And that is a concept that comes up time and time again in science fiction. And it's very dystopian because it lacks the diversity it takes to survive, to get through the tough times. You need a little of this, you need a little of that. And you also can't let the diversity of the heterogeneousness wipe you out, because with that kind of permissiveness, you're going to have the psychopaths and the sociopaths who rise to power and could infect the system and, take it in unexpected directions. So with diversity comes risk, but with homogeneity comes another kind of risk. A single virus wipes out a whole banana crop of clones. So there's a balance, there's a vibrating edge balance. And so I'm bringing this up, the hegemony, because why was I? I was talking about it takes diversity, it takes all kinds. those people who are generally pessimists bring up reasons. They hearken back to good old days. They believe that there are certain inalienable rights that are more inalienable than others. They want to make America great again. And they're scared of the foreigners. Scared of the foreigners. It's always a hallmark of the closed mind. Always a hallmark of the closed mind. If you're scared of others who are not like you, then you're part of the problem. It's a unique problem for Jews, because Jews are always the stranger in the strange land. Half the sci-fi out there is this. Some of it is called Stranger in a Strange Land. So it's that book, Heinlein. Highly recommended. The ability to think each other into oblivion and the Nash equilibrium that evolves in a race where people can think each other into oblivion, pop each other into the fourth spatial dimension, push them out, orthogonal to everywhere, to a place they can't come back from. And everybody has that ability. And cannibalism is a mark of respect and honor, taking the no longer used material body of the deceased into you. We're full of wonderful concepts. Stranger in a strange land. But also Superman. Superman's a Jew. Superman's a Jew. So the same thing that gives you your superpowers makes you an outcast. There's a recurring theme for my kind, right? And is that good or is that bad? And what does that mean? Well, there's neither good or bad, but it's part of the diversity. It's part of the heterogeneous society, which ultimately is the source of strength of a society. And that makes it good in general. But you got your isolationist pockets of Jews as well. You know, the way you have Amish people who are still living as if, frozen in time on their horse and buggies. There was a type of society called Luddites who opposed change for the sake of opposing change. Very closed minds. There are no more Luddites, except in spirit. But there are still Amish. There are still Amish, and preserving those old ways might be good, but it's controversial because of the, sheltering of the kids and that little thing they do of going out into society. And if they come back, they can be good Amish. But if they go through that, I should remember the name of it, and, sow their wild oats and they never finish sowing their wild oats, or they knock someone up, or, they fall in love with the city, or whatever, or there's a psychological effect where you can't go back to where you were after a period of growth. That could happen. So the Amish allow for that, and still they exist. So the Jews have, various, schisms of pockets, the Black Hat Brigade, the Hasidic Jews. They would not consider me a Jew at all. My religion is secular humanism. My temple is Star Trek and the sci-fi books. They would not consider me a Jew. But I've been to that, I think, 713 West Brooklyn? There's a place which is like where they study the Torah. And these are not the Hasidic so much as they are the Lubavitcher Jews, another schism, who believe in not proselytizing, because Jews don't proselytize. No one recruits Jews into Judaism, but they will shepherd those lost from the flock, such as myself, back into Judaism. The Lubavitcher branch of the Hasidic Jews, and they're the friendly ones. If you see the Black Hat Jews who give you a smile, who seem inviting, who don't seem to be setting themselves apart and separate from you, you probably got followers of that Rebbe, what's his face, who study at 7-something Brooklyn, who are just generally more outgoing, particularly to my kind, who they're trying to round back into the flock. But in general, of other, non-Jews, they integrate more. They're the ones who that will give you a smile walking on the street of New York. They're the ones who run B&H, audio and video. Wonderful. That's my mecca, right? And it used to be J&R and B&H, but J&R closed. And of the few cultural things I actually really appreciated about New York City was B&H, which they call beards and hats. So anyway, I'm here at PetSmart. It's time for me to wrap up this little thing. My kid's very excited about telling me about the new logo from PetSmart. That was a little bit controversial on the tubes, but it's an hour-long video. Thanks for joining. I hope to see you real soon, and don't forget to subscribe.